start off by saying how excited we are about this re-release, but I was wondering if you could tell everybody out there why you guys have decided to go with this re-release to celebrate the 10th anniversary.
Yeah, well, because of the 10th anniversary, we thought we'd do something special for it because it was our first album, and we're still pretty happy with it even till this day. We play a lot of the songs still live. We'd never had a release on vinyl, so when John from Rue Morgue Records approached me, I thought, well, why not? What better time than now?
What is it that makes vinyl so special for you? Was there something there inside you as a muso that went, you know what, I really need to have a vinyl release?
Well, the vinyl was the first source of kind of music that I'd ever picked up. When I was young, my father had a bunch of Black Sabbath records and Iron Maiden, heaps of AC/DC. So when I was young, he showed me, he would pull them out of his record collection and show me how you blow the dust off them and put them on. I wasn't allowed to touch them for a long, long time by myself. He always had to be there until I got a little bit older, and like I was just saying, he told me how to clean all the record. I don't know. There is something special about having, like, listening to music on vinyl. I don't really know what it is, but it does. It feels more like, I guess the artwork's bigger. You get to stare at the artwork and just appreciate it a bit more. Yeah, I'm not sure. It's special to me.
Yeah, no, I think it's the same for a lot of people out there. I think for a lot of us, vinyl was that first way that we had to listen to music. So it always encaptures those moments. And for you guys to bring out the album for its 10th anniversary on vinyl is something special. So what was that reaction like when John first contacted you and said, hey, I've got this idea that I want to do with the Demon Calling?
I think we reached out to each other mutual. I'm not exactly sure whose idea it was, but I'm still really excited about it. Like I said, this is our first release on vinyl. We always had planned to always do a vinyl release back in the day, but it was just it was quite costly if we were doing CDs. Getting all the artwork done and all these. There was a number of reasons why we kind of put it aside. I think 10 years ago, CDs were still, fairly popular.
Yeah.
The digital kind of thing hadn't really taken over as much as it has today. It was on its way to. Look, we'd always had planned to do vinyl. When me and John spoke about it, my eyes definitely lit up, and I'm super excited. I'm really excited just to hear it, to play it myself on a record player.
So going back now to when you were recording the album, tell us a little bit about that time for Witchgrinder. You guys were fresh, you were new. This was the debut album. Tell us a little bit about what was going on with the band at that time when you actually went in to record the Demon Calling.
Yeah, it feels so. Well, it is long ago. It's a decade, I guess. We were so excited. We had released an EP just before that and had a great response. The band was it was at that point where we were, we were getting talked about. We were starting to play bigger shows. We had a new bass player had just come into it, Daniel Walker. He just had entered the band. The songs were pretty well down as we went into the studio, because they were songs that some of the songs were from the EP and were a lot of the songs that we'd been playing live. So it was a good experience getting into the studio to record that. We recorded with a guy named Sam Johnson, and he told us to keep it as raw as possible. He made us make sure we had our amps set to what we'd have on stage, and things like that. Like, he didn't want to make us sound like anything but the way we were sounding at the time, which was really cool, because I do notice, compared to a lot of the newer stuff, how much the sounds evolved since then. But because we have different types of stuff, so when I do listen to the album, I can hear what and why we were doing those kind of things back then. It's kind of, like it captured in the times, captured in the music, if that makes a bit of sense.
Yeah. Did it surprise you when you said, I want to capture that live sound? Was it what you were expecting?
I didn't know what to expect, because I'd been into studios before and recorded a lot of music. I've been doing it since before I can even remember. But I don't think I'd been in to really sit in a studio and record a full-length album with that kind of time period, like where we could sit in for a couple of weeks and talk about those little things, and kind of work with someone who was more of a producer as well.
Yeah.
So usually I'd gone into studios and just told whoever's recording it what I wanted, and didn't really have any guidance from anyone else. Where this was like, he had a vision for the album also.
Yep.
Which we sat down and discussed before we began the recording process.
You mentioned previously as well that there was a lot of people talking about the band at the time. I can remember that the EP came out and it blew a lot of people away, and like you said, you were playing bigger shows. Did you guys kind of feel the pressure when you started to work on this album because so many people were talking about the band?
No, not at all. I think the second album, I felt a bit more pressure. This one, no. Like I said, the songs were... People had started to hear these songs because we were playing them live before. Like, if it wasn't from the EP and they were newer songs, we were still out there playing those live. So I think a lot of people had heard some of it. We knew that we had a good bunch of songs for this album. We knew that's what people were going to expect, and I think that's why we went with the kind of live, the rawness sound that we had. I think that's why we decided to go that way, rather than try and play with new tones and all that kind of stuff. We just, I don't think I felt pressured at the time.
Yeah,
it was fun. It kind of happened pretty fast, because once we recorded and the album was out, then we, like I said before that, we were starting to play bigger shows. But after the Demon Calling release, that's when we started playing with international bands and things like that. So it all kind of went pretty fast over those few years.
Yeah. What kind of things were influencing your songwriting at the time? Were you being influenced by things happening in your personal life, or was it things going on in the world at that time? What kind of things were capturing your attention when you sat down to write?
I mean, we stick to the horror theme of things. Not really sure. As far as bands and things go, I was listening to a lot of Ministry at the time, and what else? I was going a little bit with the EP at the start. We were kind of listening to White Zombie and Rob Zombie stuff and Rammstein, but by the time the record came, I think we went a little bit like older style industrial metal bands like Ministry and Pitch Shifter and Nail Bomb and all that. So I think I'd kind of gone back a little bit to the older stuff before. So yeah, the writing for the Demon Calling was definitely, I'm not sure what the other influences outside the music were. Like, I was working with the drummer. Me and him were working for Shock Records at the time. So we were open to so much music at the time. Like, there was, it was a distribution company, so there was so much music coming through. We'd be picking up new CDs all the time and listening to them. So I can't pinpoint anything in particular that came out on that album.
Yeah. Where did your love for horror come from? Like you said, that was always there as an influence. Where did that love for horror originate for you?
When I was a kid, how I was talking about when I'd pick up records and things like that, I loved going to the video store as a kid with my mates or whatever, and my dad was pretty cruisy when it come to whatever movies I'd watch. He didn't really say much. He never put like said, oh, that's a bit too rough. You can't be watching that. I think he just kind of took a blind eye because I think he enjoyed them as well.
Yeah.
So I would go down and I would stare at all the covers just like I'd stare at an Iron Maiden cover, and see all these, monsters and creatures and things like that. And I'd hire the movie with the coolest cover, you know what I mean? And regardless if it was any good or anything. And then I started, when videos were going to DVD a lot, they started selling up heaps of VHS, like for about $1 or $2. So I would go around Melbourne when I was about 18, 19, and I would like every payday, I would go down and spend, like, let's say, there was $1 or, 3 for $2 or something like that. I would grab about 10 or 20 horror movies.
Yep.
So I have a massive collection. I think I've got like around 200 or 300 VHS of old 80s, 70s, 90s horror movies.
Awesome.
Yeah, so I've always been a fan of that. So when it came to writing, because me and the drummer had been in a previous band, we had wrote songs with a bit more deeper kind of meanings and more personal kind of experiences and that.
Yeah.
And this time around when we started Witchgrinder, we kind of thought we didn't want to sing so much about that. We wanted to sing about something fun that I was interested in, and because of the horror stuff, I thought people don't have to think as much. I didn't have to think as much. It was just more fun. So you were kind of like, it was meant to be like kind of party and fun, like just entertaining. It was never to be taken too seriously.
Yeah.
We do a lot of stuff in tongue-in-cheek with it. There are some deeper meanings behind it, but even in horror movies you can see there's a deeper meaning behind some of them.
Yep.
Some of the really good ones.
Yeah. And talking of really good ones, I have to ask, because I'm a horror fan as well, what are your go-to horror films for the kids listening and reading this out there that want to go back and discover the horror films that you and I grew up on? What horror films would you recommend? Which are your faves?
Well, see, I've had this question a few times, and it's been a very hard one to answer. I do like, one that always springs into mind is I like the 80s Pet Sematary movie, because it had a bit of everything in it. It's spooky. It had, dead people coming back to life. I've just so many cool things and cool scenes in that movie that I love.
Definitely.
The child gets possessed, and that's the last thing you want as a little kid kind of running around. But yeah, then I like all the things, speaking of little kids, like all Child's Play and things like that. The classic 80s horror ones and the slasher ones like Jason and things like that. I like any of them. If a kid's going to get into horror, I think they should definitely start in the 80s.
Definitely. So, with the vinyl release now of The Demon Calling, what have you guys got in store for the vinyl collector out there? Like, what can your fans expect from this? Is there something special there?
Yeah, there is. There'll be... it's all totally getting remastered. So, it won't be just, the master from the original release. Every song will be remastered. There'll be extra artwork in there, some signed things. Lots of. I think there's like the record will come with like a mini booklet, with a lot of behind the scenes photos that we never released. Yeah, I'm not sure, but there's a lot. I know we haven't actually sat down to speak about all the things that we're going to do with it, because the release date for the pre-orders is not for a few months away yet.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know there's a lot of cool things. Like the members that were in Witchgrinder when the Demon Calling was released, none of them actually play in Witchgrinder anymore.
Yep.
But I've reached out to a couple of them, and they're all very happy about it and willing to do, little things. I think we're going to go back. The title track, like the Demon Calling film clip, was filmed in an underground, like sewer in the middle of Melbourne, around Paran, about 5 minutes deep, kind of underground. So I think we're going to retrace our steps and go down there and film a bunch of stuff down there, like kind of talk about where we shot parts of the film clip, and so we'll release a few little things up until the vinyl comes out as well, little extra things like that for people to check out.
Awesome. And what's it been like for you guys reflecting on things like that? Has that been a good journey down memory lane as well?
Well, we haven't really had time to reflect on it yet.
Yeah.
I mean, even though it has been, I'm guessing this 10 years will give us time to look back at that. Like I said, I'm still friends with all the guys who were in the band at the time, but everyone's been so busy, and I mean, with everything that's gone on in the last couple of years, a lot of us have lost contact in a little way. Like, we haven't touched base as much. So I guess, in the next few months, we're going to be talking a bit again, and revisiting it all. And I'm sure there's a lot of good memories. Probably a couple of bad ones, but mostly good.
Definitely. Well, mate, to finish up, what would you like to say to people out there? What would you like to say to your fans who are thinking about ordering the vinyl once it's ready to be ordered?
I'd just like to say thank you. If they're still here after 10 years, we've got a pretty good, loyal fan base. I mean, to be doing this 10 years later is still a little bit of a dream for me, because originally when I started the band, we didn't have any huge goals at all. We just kind of wanted to make sure we could play a few shows every now and then. We felt like we were missing out because we'd always been musicians. So, I mean, for people to be sticking around and still interested in buying an album that I wrote probably I wrote it a year before I went into record, so 11 years ago, that are still willing to go out and buy our stuff on vinyl, like, I think that's a pretty special thing.
Definitely. Well, mate,